We are continuing the second chapter of the second act. May this reading relax your mind and awaken your heart. That night, Bhikkhu Vivekananda and I attended an independent lecture by the world-renowned author and orator, J. Krishnamurti. We entered a large tent, or pandal, and took seats in the second row of chairs. As the pandal rapidly filled, a man of about 60 sat beside us. His name was Dilip. "Would you like to hear something about the life of J. Krishnamurti?" he asked. "He's my teacher." "Please," we responded. He crossed his legs, leaned back in his chair, and began. He told us that Krishnamurti was born in South India in 1895 and, as a child, was discovered by the renowned clairvoyant Charles Leadbeater. Both Leadbeater and Annie Besant, who was the leader of the Theosophical Society, proclaimed that the child was the quote-unquote vehicle of the same world teacher who spoke through Christ. Annie Besant educated the boy in England and brought him around the world, where thousands received him as the next Messiah and formed the quote-unquote Order of the Star around him. When he was 27, he formally accepted the role as the enlightened master and was soon worshipped by over 60,000 members. Dilip leaned forward, but in 1929, he rejected his position as master, dissolved his religious movement, and... Suddenly everyone rose as J. Krishnamurti appeared on the stage. An elderly man of 75. He was small and slender and impeccably dressed in a Nehru jacket and loose pants. His smooth-shaven face was worn by the lines of age, and his predominantly white hair gave him a scholarly distinction. His soft eyes glistened with enthusiasm as he welcomed the assembly graciously in a British accent. Soon enough, though, he launched into a call for revolution. Shaking his clenched fist, he declared, "You have too many gurus in this country. They have told you what to do, what to think, what to practice. They are the dictators." Pin-drop silence filled the tent. Truth is a pathless land, but yoga, with its breathing and postures, is nothing more than psychosomatic acrobatics. Ashrams and monasteries are concentration camps of the mind. He paused and looked right into my eyes. When you have a system of meditation, it is no longer meditation, but is utterly futile and has no meaning whatsoever. He told a story about the devil who was walking with a friend. They witnessed a man ahead of them on the road picking up a brilliant object. The devil's friend turned and asked what the man had found. The devil answered, "He has picked up the truth." "That's a bad business for you," the friend said. "Not at all," the devil replied. "I am going to help him organize it." To make his point more emphatic, Krishnamurti closed his eyes and slowed down his speech. We must bring about a revolution in ourselves. But how can this take place when our lives are superficial? Spending years in the office, living a shallow, empty existence. He leaned forward. Man cannot be enlightened through any organization, creed, dogma, priest, or ritual, nor through any philosophic knowledge or psychological technique. He has to find it through understanding the contents of his own mind, through observation, not through intellectual analysis or introspective dissection. I shuddered to think of how this discourse would affect my dear Bhikkhu Vivekananda. After all, he was the guru of thousands of monks in an organized monastery teaching meditation and ritual. I turned to him and whispered, Bhikkhu, he is attacking everything you have dedicated your life to. What do you feel? Bhikkhu's eyes widened in wonder, and he exclaimed, What he says is true. Taken aback, I asked, What are you going to do now, Bhikkhu? His features turned grave. I will have to think seriously about this. For the next few days, we attended a series of talks given by Krishnamurti, where he demonstrated an amazing power of logic and conviction. Even though he was renowned as one who could answer any question and defeat any argument, on a personal level, he was gentle, kind, and humorous. I pondered his teachings. Eastern literature was filled with histories of enlightened saints who carefully followed their religion or their particular guru. How could I disregard them all on the basis of one man's realizations? However, Krishnamurti had impressed upon me that superficiality had no place in spiritual life. We must take personal responsibility. If we become overly attached to the externals, we may forget their very purpose, to purify the heart. One day, while sitting under the shade of a peepal tree with Bhikkhu, I asked if he knew what he was going to do. He ran his finger along the edge of his begging bowl. Yes, Richard, I do, he said. I will return to my monastery in Thailand. Really? I responded. So what is your opinion of Krishnamurti's teachings? He stared off into the middle distance in thought and then spoke. I will follow Mr. J. Krishnamurti. A mischievous little smile played on his lips. Shall I tell you how? Yes, please. I will reject the teachings of the teacher who teaches us to reject teachers and teachings. He jested in his sweet Thai accent. Later that day, I bid farewell to Bhikkhu and wandered on foot to Connaught Circus, the commercial center of the city. Here I sat beneath an Ashoka tree and wrote these words to my family in America. The way India is affecting me is beyond words. This is all that could be said. Deep love lies in my heart for all of you. I pray that you are well. Richard, New Delhi, India, December 1970. Designed by the British, Connaught Circus was laid out in an immense circle surrounding a spacious park. Exploring the enclosed walkway, my attention was drawn to a hand-painted sign that read, S.S. Brijabasi and Sons of Religious Artwork. Stacked on the sidewalk were hundreds of 8x10 prints. I was lured to look closer. The prints, full of marvelous figures that struck me as very odd, yet very beautiful, were like windows into a world of colors, mysteries, and magic. I wanted to keep one as an object for meditation. Looking into my small bag, I saw that I had barely enough change to buy a single image. For about an hour, I sat on the sidewalk searching the selection. Among the pictures was a beautiful woman with 8 arms holding swords, choppers, and spears, and riding a lion. Then a fantastical, somewhat pudgy man with the head of an elephant who was sitting on a mouse. Flipping through them, I found the picture of a handsome blue person with 4 arms, decorated with elegant ornaments, lying on a multi-headed serpent. Next was a tranquil yogi immersed in meditation with snakes wrapped around his limbs. the moon residing on his head and water gushing up from his hair. And then there was a heroic boy holding a spear while riding on a peacock. I came across a magnificent monkey wearing a crown whose eyes shone with devotion. Smiling, he flew through the sky effortlessly, carrying a mountain in the palm of his hand. As I rummaged deeper through the stack of prints, I discovered a person with a dozen heads, each of a different species and multiple arms. Gruesome people were flying into and being devoured by his flaming mouths. This art was beyond description. The figures unbelievable. Were they from fairy tales or mythology? I didn't know, but I felt the art was inspired. I wondered how I could possibly choose only one. Suddenly, from out of the stack of prints appeared a personality that affected me like no other. He had a bluish complexion, wore a peacock feather in his crown, and played a flute while posing gracefully beside a river. Behind him, a white cow stared lovingly, and a full moon bathed an enchanted forest in pearly light. Spontaneous tears filled my eyes. The person in the picture seemed to fill my very soul. Why was this happening to me? I felt him calling me. But how? It was only a painting, and of a fantastical person I didn't even know. His name was written on the bottom in an ancient alphabet I couldn't read. I gave whatever money I had to the shopkeeper, but it was not enough. He smiled and gave me the picture anyway, a picture that I would not part with during the rest of my travels. Who was this person in the image? For a long time, that was to remain a mystery. Thank you for listening as we conclude the second chapter of the second act of the journey home. I thought as much. I remember after the first chapter, there was a picture that fitted this description he has shared now. I think this is the image that spoke to his heart. You can see the moon in the background, illuminating an enchanted forest, a wonderful cow looking up at him, his blue complexion playing a flute. If you have any reflections on the story so far, you're welcome to share them with me. Namaste.